Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. When Sam Hanley returned home after a short trip, he didn't expect to find a full-blown neighborhood party raging on his private land, strangers in his pool, tents on his pasture, and a smiling HOA president claiming it all belonged to them now. That was their first mistake. I should have known something was off the moment I turned off the county road and saw a paper plate nailed to my cedar fence with the words "Community BBQ this way" scrawled in red marker. For a moment, I thought it was some kids being dumb, maybe a prank, but then I crested the small hill near my pond and saw it. All of it. A damn circus. On my land. There was a 20-foot inflatable arch blocking my private road, the one I built and maintained myself. No county funds, no HOA dues. Just me, a shovel, a rented grader, and a lot of sweat. The arch read, "Aspen Hills Block Party. All residents welcome." I didn't even need to keep driving to feel the rage bubbling up from my gut like bad chili. I'd been gone less than 48 hours, visiting my brother in Pueblo, and in that time, someone's decided my land was their playground. I pulled up just short of the arch, parked in the grass, and stepped out of my truck like I was entering hostile territory, because really, I was. My 6-acre property looked like the damn infield at Coachella. Tents lined the edge of my front pasture, the grass trampled, chairs scattered like drunk dominoes, kids running in soaked swimsuits. My solar-powered water pump was humming, and there were extension cords snaking from it toward what appeared to be a fully powered grilling station under a party tent. My pool, which is surrounded by a gate with a private no-entry sign that I had professionally welded, was wide open. I counted at least 10 kids splashing in it. Strangers. Not a single face familiar. Then I looked up toward my porch. I froze. There, sitting comfortably in my Adirondack chairs, my chairs, were 3 adults and a teenager, plates piled with barbecue, coolers at their feet, laughing like they owned the place. One of them, a guy in flip-flops and a polo shirt with a popped collar, raised his beer to me like I was the mailman. I said nothing, just stared. I took a slow walk past the tents. A portable speaker blasted some kind of pop country remix. I saw someone had hung banners from my porch rails. "Welcome, HOA families." One of my horses, Dusty, wasn't even in his corral. His buddy Hank was tied up near a Ford Explorer with a HOA Aspen Hills resident sticker on the back window. Next to them, someone had set up a makeshift pen with some wire fencing and used my hitch post to tether their goddamn Labrador. My land, my animals, my infrastructure turned into a suburban community event. I didn't yell, not yet. I walked calmly around the side of the house toward my well pump, and sure enough, they'd hooked multiple extension cords to my solar inverter. No breaker, no safety equipment, just plugged in and running their crap. That's when I heard her voice. "Oh, Sam, there you are." I turned, and there she was, Karen Miller, president of the Aspen Hills HOA. She wore khaki shorts, a visor, and a light blue polo with the HOA logo embroidered on the chest. In one hand, she held a mojito. In the other, a clipboard. "Of course. We thought you were out of town until Monday," she said, laughing as if she hadn't just orchestrated an occupation. This area was listed on the 2023 HOA expansion map as Section D, Common Area. Congratulations. My jaw didn't drop. I clenched it. "This is an HOA property," I said. My voice was calm, too calm. "You know that." "Oh, it is now," she said sweetly. "The map was approved last quarter by the board. Your parcel was marked as an unutilized easement. It was a clerical thing. But with the community trust in place, we were able to incorporate it as a recreational extension. It's all above board." I looked her dead in the eye. "Karen, this is private land. It's recorded under my name in the El Paso County Register. I've got the deed, the surveys, the GPS coordinates. Hell, I built the goddamn fence posts myself. What kind of delusional fantasy are you living in?" She laughed, sipped her mojito. "Oh, you must not have read the revision to the covenants. You signed it last year. It's on file." I didn't respond. I just pulled out my phone and dialed. 15 minutes later, the sheriff's cruiser rolled up just past the inflatable arch. Deputy Martinez stepped out, squinting into the late afternoon sun. He'd been out here before, when a neighbor's dog got loose, once when I reported illegal dumping. But this, he looked overwhelmed before he even asked a question. I explained everything, showed him the deed, The GIS map, the property line markers, even the one I cemented by hand at the creek bed. Karen, smiling, handed him her documents, a packet with a cover sheet that said Aspen Hills HOA expansion proposal. The top page had a signature, my name, in cursive. Neat. Very not mine. Martinez frowned. Mr. Hanley, is this your signature? Hell no. He scratched the back of his neck. Well, this might be a civil matter. I can't determine ownership on site, and I definitely can't adjudicate forgery. I stepped forward. Then get them the hell off my land. I can't do that either, he said, glancing at Karen. There are kids here, families, and I understand your frustration, but we've had a report that you were seen reaching for a firearm. I looked at him blankly. Your neighbor, Mr. Clyburn, says you were carrying a shotgun when you got out of the truck. I keep it behind the seat. It never left the cab. Still, I need you to keep calm, Mr. Hanley. Calm. Right. I took a breath, stepped back, and nodded. Fine. But you better believe this isn't over. Karen waved at me with her clipboard. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, neighbor. I didn't sleep that night. Not a wink. I sat at my kitchen table until dawn, surrounded by copies of my land survey, property deed, plat maps, and GPS overlays I'd printed from my GIS software. Every document I'd kept for years because I knew someday someone would try something stupid. But this was a new level of madness. A signed document with my name on it, filed with the HOA, claiming I agreed to give away my land for community use. That wasn't just a misunderstanding. That was fraud. The next morning, I drove straight into town, right to the county clerk's office. I'd spoken with Denise there a few times, mostly when updating my property records after I upgraded my well system and registered the horses. When I told her what was going on, she didn't even try to act surprised. I've had Aspen Hills filing a lot lately, she said as she typed on her terminal. They've been active, rezoning requests, environmental grants, HOA boundary expansions. Pull everything they've filed in the last 18 months, I said, especially anything referencing Section D or my parcel number, 12-17 Alpha. It took her about 10 minutes to find it. There it is, Amendment to HOA Jurisdiction Boundaries, filed under Community Expansion Initiative. Here. She turned the monitor toward me. I leaned in, and there it was, a scanned PDF, a document labeled Consent for Inclusion Parcel A, Hanley, my name, my parcel number, my supposed signature. I stared at it. That's not my goddamn signature. Want to print it? Print 5. As the printer spit out the pages, I scanned the rest of the file. Attached to the inclusion form was a copy of a letter supposedly from me, dated 11 months ago, stating that I wish to support the recreational development of the community and entrust management of the undeveloped section of my property to the Aspen Hills Homeowners Association. It was complete fabrication, worded in language I'd never use, written in a tone so sugar-slick it made my skin crawl. This is fraud, I said out loud. Denise raised her eyebrows. You'll need to report it. Oh, I will. But that wasn't the end of it. As I dug deeper, I found that the HOA hadn't just filed boundary extensions. They'd submitted a full land use proposal through the city's Community Green Space Development Program. And leading the proposal, a nonprofit I'd never heard of, Aspen Hills Green Space Trust. I pulled it up on the Colorado Secretary of State's site. Sure enough, it was real, registered 11 months ago. President Derek Miller, Karen's cousin, Secretary Kay Miller, Treasurer, someone with a mailing address identical to the Aspen Hills HOA office. The nonprofit had received a grant of $50,000 from the city for community integration and ecological education programming, funded through Municipal Green Initiatives. Translation: they were using city money to throw HOA picnics on my land. The expansion map they submitted with the application included my parcel labeled as Public Greenbelt. A fucking greenbelt. My backyard, my barn, my goddamn water supply. All marked in cheerful green with benches and picnic tables drawn in. And all of it built on a lie. I drove from the clerk's office straight to the county attorney's office. The receptionist told me to file a fraud complaint through the Property Review Board, so I did. Then I filed another one with the State Land Survey Authority. I wasn't done. I sent copies of every document I had to the El Paso County District Attorney's Office, to the State Auditor, and to the Homeowner Advocacy Board of Colorado. Most of the replies I got over the next few days were the same. Copy-paste bureaucratic shoulder shrugs. We appreciate your concern. This issue may require private civil litigation. Nobody wanted to touch it. Nobody wanted to be first. Meanwhile, Karen was holding HOA yoga classes on my west pasture. The final straw came when a code enforcement officer showed up on my property without warning, asking to inspect the community facility infrastructure. I asked what the hell he was talking about. He said, "The records we received show your parcel as part of an HOA common use zone. It falls under updated zoning 4B. I stood there in silence for a moment, then asked, "What department sent you?" "Planning and Development." I nodded, then turned and walked to my workshop. When I came back out, I handed him a full copy of my deed, my GPS coordinate layout, and the county plat certification notarized. I also handed him the printed forged signature and told him to get a lawyer. He left in a hurry. That night, I didn't just stew, I planned. I called a contact I hadn't spoken to in 3 years, a buddy of mine from my university days who now worked in local news. He owed me one. I told him I had a story he wouldn't believe. He said he'd drive out the next morning. I slept with one eye open, a loaded Remington next to the bed, and my horses double-tied behind the barn. By the time the reporter arrived the next morning, I'd already mowed the entire north field out of sheer nervous energy. His name was Devin Fry, a local from KRCH, Denver. We'd known each other in college. He was the loudmouth who always argued with professors and carried a camera in his backpack like it was an extra limb. He looked the same, only older and more caffeinated. "Oh, Jesus, Sam," he said, stepping out of his Subaru and taking in the mess. "You weren't kidding." I handed him a flash drive. "Everything's on there. Maps, fake documents, nonprofit registry, grant info, forged signature. Take your pick." He whistled low. "And they really did all this while you were out of town?" 48 hours, tops. He spent the better part of the day filming, interviewing me in front of my pool, where a few broken pool noodles still floated like sad survivors from a party they were never invited to. He took drone shots of the property, slow pans of my "trespassers will be prosecuted" signs, and the busted fence Karen's crew installed their welcome tent next to. He asked smart questions, not sensationalist but sharp, cutting right into the legality of the whole thing. "Did you ever at any point sign anything?" "No." "Would you be willing to take a polygraph?" "Hell, I'll tattoo the truth across my forehead if that's what it takes." He nodded and promised to run the story. "I'm not saying it'll make you a hero overnight," he said, "but public pressure can shift mountains when City Hall won't." By that point, the HOA circus had quieted down. The tents were gone, the BBQ stains had faded from my porch, and the pool was empty, chemically violated, but empty. But just when I thought I had room to breathe, the real retaliation started. I got a letter taped to my mailbox, handwritten, anonymous. It read, "You are dividing this community. We all just want peace. If you keep making trouble, someone might call animal control about those poor horses left in the heat." No signature, just that. Later that evening, my trail cam picked up 3 kids, teenagers maybe, lighting fireworks near the rear fence line. My horses panicked. Hank jumped the low gate and nearly ran through my vegetable garden. When I reviewed the footage, I zoomed in and saw the kids were wearing Aspen Hills HOA t-shirts. I filed a police report. Nothing came of it. A day later, a guy from the county's Department of Environmental Oversight came by asking about complaints that I was dumping waste into the creek. I don't even have plumbing near the creek. He didn't seem convinced. That's when I realized this wasn't just about land anymore. This was about pressure. Karen was turning every lever she could reach. Bureaucracy, perception, intimidation, slow, quiet harassment. She was trying to wear me down, turn me into the problem. So I changed gears. I called a private surveyor, independent, out of town, no ties to the HOA or anyone in the county. Cost me a chunk, but they agreed to a full geodetic resurvey of the parcel, complete with drone LiDAR overlays and legal-grade documentation. I also called a tech-savvy kid from Pueblo, already new through a construction job last year. He came out and helped me wire up 6 new trail cameras, including infrared at the property edges, motion detection, full timestamp logs, backup to a cloud server. I wasn't just going to defend the land, I was going to document every damn inch of it. Then I got a tip from an unlikely source. Mrs. Callahan, the retired schoolteacher who lived at the edge of Aspen Hills, stopped me by the feed store, said she'd overheard something odd during a HOA board meeting. Karen had mentioned quiet cooperation from someone in zoning and laughed about how Sam can't fight what's already filed. That night, I sat down with a cup of burnt coffee and made a list, not of enemies, of tactics. Karen was playing a long con with maps, signatures, fake nonprofits, PR campaigns. I was going to play smarter, and that meant going covert. The next morning, I called a guy I hadn't spoken to in years, Marvin Dillard, private investigator, ex-cop, ex-federal contract work, and more paranoid than a raccoon on meth. He owed me from a boundary dispute I helped him win a decade ago. I didn't give him details. I just said I needed a clean and legal sting, something tight, something clever. He paused, then said, "I've got someone for that. Young, talented, no legal liability. Let me make a call." That night, while reviewing trail cam footage, I saw something that made me pause. Karen, in her HOA golf cart, parked just inside my gate. She stepped out, adjusted a community use area sign, took a selfie in front of my barn, then drove off. She was smiling, and suddenly, I was too, because the gloves were off. There's a special kind of satisfaction that comes from turning the tables, especially when your opponent has no idea the game has changed. And Karen, she didn't just think she was winning, she thought I was beat. Done. A bitter man with too much land and not enough friends. That was her first and biggest mistake. By the time Marvin's associate arrived, I'd cleaned up my barn, patched the fence, and swept up the last of the HOA's party confetti that was still stuck to my rain gutters. I didn't know what to expect when Marvin said he had someone subtle, someone slippery. What I got was a 30-something woman named Riley, dressed in yoga pants, a Patagonia vest, and driving a Tesla with Denver plates. She looked like she'd grown out of Boulder itself. "You Hanley?" she said as she stepped out. "That's me." "Cool. Let's trap a Karen." Turns out Riley wasn't just slick. She was brilliant. Her background was corporate intelligence, the kind of person hired by billion-dollar companies to go undercover and dig up internal sabotage. But she also freelanced for legal firms as a pre-litigation informant. No wires, no gray zones, all above board, admissible and untraceable. Her cover, Jessica Steele, representative of Cobalt Eco Developments, a fake sustainability investment firm interested in acquiring land partnerships with proactive HOAs for future green infrastructure builds. Basically, she was offering to buy into the HOA's expansion, but only if the leadership could show a track record of smooth land consolidation and community engagement. That was like catnip to Karen. Riley attended a public HOA mixer 2 days later, hosted at the Aspen Hills Rec Center, a building so aggressively beige it practically screamed middle management. She brought a folder full of glossy marketing material, fake press clippings, and a branded USB drive that didn't actually hold anything. She wore a smart pantsuit and introduced herself as someone looking for ambitious community leaders who understand the value of future-friendly zoning. By the end of the event, Karen had her cell number, her email, and a lunch scheduled for Thursday. Meanwhile, I kept the cameras rolling. The harassment had died down for a bit. No new letters, no sudden visits from county inspectors, but I knew it was just a tactical pause. I focused on prep. I was in touch with my lawyer almost daily, and the geodetic survey was nearly finished. Every iron peg and boundary was GPS tagged, documented, and drone recorded. Bulletproof. Soon, I'd be ready to go full scorched earth in court, but I wanted proof of intent. I needed Karen to say it. Out loud. Thursday came, and Riley met her at a boutique cafe downtown. We picked the location carefully, a place with no cameras, no Wi-Fi, and plenty of ambient noise. I waited at a nearby table with a legal pad and my phone face down, trying to look like an architect sketching out a doomed condo. The moment Karen sat down, she lit up like a Christmas display. She was wearing the HOA polo again, like it was armor, and carried that damn clipboard like a scepter. The conversation started slow. Small talk, the neighborhood, how proud she was of the HOA's growth. But within 15 minutes, Riley steered her gently. And how do you deal with reluctant landowners? She asked. You know, people who aren't quite enthusiastic about inclusion. Karen took a sip of her chai latte and laughed. Well, you can't let one person hold up a whole vision, she said. Sometimes it's about reframing things. There's a lot of legal gray out here, especially with easements. And some owners don't even realize they've already signed things or had their spouses sign things. Ha! Riley smiled politely. Really? Oh, yes, Karen said, her voice lowering conspiratorially. We had this one guy, a real rugged cowboy type, who tried to fight us, claimed we used his land without permission, but we had a consent letter on file. His name, signature, everything. Did he really sign it? Karen rolled her eyes. Does it matter? It's filed, it's stamped, and no one's challenged it in court yet. People think land ownership is sacred, but it's just paperwork. Whoever controls the file cabinet wins. Boom. The next part was even better. Karen bragged about the nonprofit. We created a trust, clean, legal, tax-friendly. It let us apply for city grants, which we used to fund the community park project. Technically, it's on private land, but once people are used to using a space, they don't want to give it up. That's called establishing community precedent. Riley tilted her head. Isn't that risky? Karen grinned. Only if someone pushes back hard enough. And he won't. These loner types never do. They file complaints, whine about the law, but they don't understand how systems work. By the time it reaches court, we've already painted the narrative. Aggressive landowner versus community progress. We'll win on sentiment, if not substance. I had to grip the edge of my table to keep from walking over and pouring her latte down her visor. The whole thing was recorded, audio and video. Riley had a cam embedded in her necklace. Fully legal since Colorado's a one-party consent state. That night, we reviewed the footage at my place. I watched Karen on screen smirking like the queen of her plastic kingdom, unaware she'd just signed her own execution warrant. Whoever controls the file cabinet wins, she'd said. Well, Karen, guess what? I just got the key to yours. It started with a brown envelope, thick, sealed, and hand-delivered by a courier who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Inside, the official notice of civil complaint, stamped and signed, filed by yours truly, plaintiff Samuel Hanley, defendants Karen Miller, the Aspen Hills Homeowners Association, the Aspen Hills Green Space Trust, and one unnamed county zoning officer, John R. Lotman, listed as a co-conspirator under administrative negligence and malfeasance. The day I filed the complaint in El Paso County District Court, I felt like I'd swallowed lightning. I wasn't just standing my ground anymore. I was taking the fight to their front lawn. My lawyer, Eric Bannister, was a real bastard in the best way possible. 60-something, steel gray hair, and a voice like worn-out sandpaper. Former JAG officer. His specialty, property rights litigation and civil fraud. We met at his office just after I received the surveillance footage from Riley. He watched the whole Karen Cafe confession without blinking. That, he said, pointing at the screen, is a perjury grenade. He set to work immediately, drafting multiple complaints and subpoenas, leveraging the footage, the falsified documents, the GIS overlays, the city grant paperwork, and the not-so-coincidental zoning maps. Every little scheme Karen had cooked up was now ammunition. The court gave us a preliminary hearing date. We served the defendants the following week. Karen got hers during a morning yoga class. Right there on the HOA clubhouse lawn, surrounded by middle-aged women in overpriced leggings, a process server approached her with a smile and said, "Mrs. Karen Miller, you've been served." She tried to play it cool, but someone caught it on video. The way her face fell, how her hand shook as she took the envelope. That clip hit next door before sunset. I didn't post it, but I didn't mind that it was out there. Then came the media coverage. Devin Fry, the reporter, kept his promise. His segment aired statewide. HOA gone rogue. Landowner fights back after property hijacked by neighborhood group. It had everything. Drone footage of the unauthorized BBQ, interviews with me and Mrs. Callahan, close-ups of forged signatures, even a walkthrough of the forged green space map that had my barn labeled as a tool share hub. The footage of Karen saying, "Whoever controls the file cabinet wins," aired uncut. It went viral. By the end of the week, HOA's PR emails started circulating. They blamed clerical confusion, over-enthusiastic volunteers, and temporary mapping overlays. Karen released a public statement denying any wrongdoing, but she didn't look as confident this time. Her smile had gone plastic, her eyes darting, calculating. She knew the tide had turned, but it wasn't just about public perception now. It was about legal momentum. We filed for an emergency injunction forcing the HOA to cease all access to my property. The judge granted it. That meant no events, no foot traffic, no utilities running through my land. I placed new signs along every boundary, updated the fence line, and had a sheriff's deputy personally present during enforcement. Karen sent a cease and desist of her own, some nonsense claiming I was libeling her reputation and interfering with community harmony. Eric laughed so hard he almost choked on his protein bar. "Let her sue," he said. "The more she thrashes, the deeper she sinks." Then something wild happened. A whistleblower from inside the HOA, a younger board member named Marcus, contacted us through Devon. Marcus had attended several internal meetings and had growing concerns. He turned over minutes from HOA board sessions, including one where Karen explicitly instructed them not to inform me of the map changes, saying, "It's better to ask forgiveness than permission. If he sues, we'll bury him in paperwork until he gives up." Marcus also shared emails. One from Karen to the zoning officer Lotman said, "Thank you for fast-tracking the adjustment. You'll have HOA's full support for the upcoming zoning re-election proposal." Yeah, with a winky face emoji. Eric nearly high-fived me. We amended the complaint, adding conspiracy and abuse of public office. The judge allowed it. Meanwhile, the nonprofit fund that Karen set up, under audit. Turns out of the $50,000 in grant money, over $20,000 had gone to event support services, including invoices for a community DJ, bulk mojito mixers, and a rental invoice for inflatable bounce houses, all of it supposedly installed on my land. The city council, which had approved the grant without review, started sweating too. My inbox suddenly lit up with very polite messages from municipal administrators who had ignored my earlier complaints. Now they were offering meetings, public hearings, and coffee dates. One of them even said, "I think we may have overlooked some documentation in your file." Yeah, no kidding. The best part, Riley, Jessica Steele, in her cover persona, got invited to an HOA exclusive stakeholder mixer at a fancy steakhouse uptown. She didn't go. We had all the footage we needed. Karen's kingdom was starting to crack. She still had her grip on the board, but now it was trembling. Her allies scattered, her aura fading. I watched her one afternoon from across the pasture as she pulled up to the old HOA party spot, now roped off with no trespassing tape. She didn't get out of the car, just sat there for a while, hands on the wheel, staring at what used to be her symbol of dominance. My land, my house, my rules. She drove off 10 minutes later. I didn't wave. By the time the preliminary hearing date rolled around, I'd already run out of wall space in my office. Every surface was covered in maps, printouts, receipts, affidavits, and surveillance stills. My place looked less like a house and more like a one-man war room, and I liked it that way. It kept me focused, sharp. Every time I looked at the fake map with my land painted green and labeled Section D, Community Green Zone, my jaw tightened just enough to remind me why I wasn't letting this go. Then came the subpoena results. Eric walked into my place carrying a banker's box full of scanned emails and zoning documents. He set it on the table like it weighed the same as a loaded shotgun. "You might want to pour yourself a drink," he said. I didn't. I just opened the lid. Inside were months of email correspondence between Karen and the city zoning department. Most were dressed in bureaucratic fluff, lots of "per my last email" and "for your review." But buried in the threads were smoking guns. One thread, dated 8 months back, had Karen attaching the altered map, complete with the faked boundary overlay, and writing, "Let's fast-track this. We've got a grant pending and a donor visit next quarter. I'll get the signature, don't worry." No mention of whose signature, just confidence. Another message from zoning officer John R. Lotman confirmed receipt and included the words, "As long as no one files a formal objection, the updated overlay will auto-validate under community use protocols." Formal objection, the one I never got a chance to make? Because I wasn't even told. Then came the best part. A forwarded PDF labeled Hanley Consent Final PDF, the exact document with my forged signature. Lotman marked it as filed, internal use only. Bingo. We added forgery, fraud, and abuse of process to the lawsuit, now spanning 3 defendants: the HOA, Karen personally, and the zoning department. Eric called in a forensic document examiner, a guy out of Boulder who specialized in identifying fake signatures and document manipulation. He did more than confirm the signature was fake. He discovered that the original form, the consent to annex the land, had been scanned from an old fence easement I'd signed 4 years ago. They digitally lifted my name from that form and pasted it onto the new document. Cut, copy, paste, commit felony. Meanwhile, I wasn't sitting idle. The independent survey firm I hired had finalized their report. It came in a leather-bound folder with embossed lettering like it was a college thesis. Inside, every inch of my land, scanned, measured, marked, GPS pinned with aerial overlays, timestamps, and third-party notarizations. The boundary markers they recorded, exactly where I put them 15 years ago when I built my fence with my own damn hands. We also got a statement from the electric company technician. He testified that when they inspected the unauthorized extension cords used during the HOA barbecue, the connection to my power source was done in an unsafe, unregulated, and potentially hazardous manner. Then my insurance company chimed in. They'd been watching the news. They sent an adjuster to inspect my property, especially the pool and pasture, citing potential unauthorized use. The report was scathing: damage to the fence, contamination in the pool, hoof trauma in the garden. They demanded Karen and the HOA pay $28,000 in property damages and violations. If they didn't, the HOA's insurer would be dragged in next. That same week, Karen's lawyer tried to file a motion to dismiss the whole case, citing lack of harm and community misunderstanding. The judge took one look at the footage from Riley's necklace cam and denied the motion on the spot. Public sentiment had shifted hard. Online forums, local radio, even HOA blogs, all ablaze. Some defended Karen, calling her a visionary. Most didn't, especially not after Devin Fry aired a follow-up piece with the forensic document report and a dramatic close-up of my notarized deed next to the fake HOA map. Then came a twist I didn't see coming. A reporter from the Denver Record published a feature on Karen's HOA career. In it, they revealed that this wasn't her first rodeo. She'd previously served on the board of a different HOA in Highlands Ranch and resigned after an internal investigation into irregular grant handling. No charges were filed. Everything had been quietly swept under the carpet. That carpet had just been yanked back. To top it off, we got a call from the State Grant Oversight Committee. They were now investigating the Aspen Hills Green Space Trust for improper use of public funds. One of their accountants noticed that the bulk of the money had been transferred to a single vendor, a shell LLC registered under the name D. Miller Property Services. Derek Miller, Karen's cousin. Karen's house of cards wasn't just leaning, it was in freefall, and yet she still hadn't folded. Not completely. We received a settlement offer, a pathetic one. No apology, just a quiet rescindment of the land claim and a waiver of further legal action in exchange for confidentiality. Eric printed it out and used it to wipe his boots before walking into court the next day. That court date wasn't the trial yet, just another motion hearing. But the judge was already irritated. He referred to Karen's legal team as uncooperative and dismissive of evident material harm. He told them, and I quote, "If this is how your HOA conducts its affairs, I dread to see what else will come out under oath." The look on Karen's face as she sat 2 rows in front of me, priceless. Her clipboard was gone. So was her signature smugness. She wasn't leading a neighborhood anymore. She was circling a drain. And I was the one pulling the plug. I wore a suit. First time in 5 years. Not the church kind or the funeral kind, the courtroom kind. Clean, sharp lines, no tie. Just enough formality to show respect, and just enough comfort to remind me that I didn't come here to play nice. I came here to win. The courtroom in El Paso County was one of those old buildings with wood paneling and ceiling fans that squeak if you listen hard enough. It smelled like history and bureaucracy. The jury box sat to my left, empty for now, while Karen and her legal team took the defense table across the aisle. Her lawyer, some smirking mid-level litigation type in a designer suit and pointed loafers, looked like he should have been selling used Lexuses, not defending land fraud. Karen looked tired, hair pinned back, no clipboard, No HOA polo, just a dark blue dress and a tight smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Her eyes were scanning everything. The bailiff, the court reporter, the judge's clerk, like she was still trying to find the angle she hadn't exploited yet. Too late for that. Eric handled opening arguments. Calm, crisp, brutal. He laid out the timeline like a murder board. Forged documents, fraudulent maps, misappropriated grant funds, abuse of zoning protocols, deliberate trespass, structural damage, and emotional distress. He quoted the law directly. CRS. Forgery in the second degree. CRS. First-degree criminal trespass, CRS, civil liability for property damage. Karen's lawyer tried to spin the narrative, framed it as a miscommunication, accused me of aggressive anti-community behavior, and claimed the HOA had acted in good faith based on existing documentation. Then came the evidence. First up, the forensic handwriting expert. He walked the jury through a side-by-side analysis of my real signature and the forgery. He explained how the stroke weight didn't match, how the baseline drifted unnaturally, how the signature had been lifted from a prior document and manipulated digitally. This is a classic cut-and-paste forgery, he said, holding up the comparison under the projector. Not even a good one. Then we rolled the video, the footage from Riley's necklace cam. Karen's face when she saw herself on screen, sipping her overpriced latte and saying, "Does it matter? It's filed," was something I'll never forget. She shifted in her chair like the seat had gone molten. Gasps echoed through the gallery. After that, the county zoning officer, Lotman, took the stand. We had him under subpoena and under pressure. His testimony was shaky, filled with, "I don't recall," and "I believe the documentation was valid, but the emails didn't lie." The judge stopped him halfway through cross and asked point blank, "Mr. Lotman, did you verify the authenticity of the consent document prior to approving the overlay map?" "No, Your Honor." "Did you communicate directly with Mr. Hanley at any point?" "No." "Then why did you list the document as verified?" "Because I trusted the HOA to have done so." That didn't sit well with the jury. Then we brought up Marcus, the HOA board member who flipped. He testified that Karen had intentionally kept board members in the dark about the full extent of her plans. He confirmed she had full control over the nonprofit trust and often made unilateral decisions without formal votes. She said, "The board is a formality," Marcus testified. "By the time anyone notices, it'll be ours anyway." We submitted his affidavit into the record. Then came the financial trail. The state grant investigator laid it bare. The trust received $50,000. $22,000 went to shell vendors. One of them, D. Miller Property Services, had no employees and no operational record. Another invoice for event logistics was signed by Karen herself, despite HOA bylaws prohibiting board members from authorizing payments to themselves or relatives. And, finally, the cherry on top, the insurance adjuster, he testified to damages, unauthorized electrical tap-ins, fencing repairs, and the contamination of the pool. He didn't mince words. This level of unauthorized access and damage is consistent with organized trespass and illegal use of private property. I didn't even need to testify. Eric had built the case so thoroughly, so methodically, that we didn't risk me saying something the defense could spin. My presence was enough. The defense tried a last-minute pivot, claimed Karen had relied on bad advice, tried to blame Lotman, even insinuated Marcus had a vendetta, but none of it stuck. The jury was stone-faced. Their expressions only changed when the footage played again. That moment, Karen laughed and said, "Whoever controls the file cabinet wins." Yeah. Not today. Closing arguments came and went. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. They returned a unanimous verdict. Liability, confirmed. Fraud, trespass, forgery, property damage, civil conspiracy. Damages awarded, $140,000. Karen sat there like a statue, blinking slowly as the number was read. Her lawyer didn't even try to appeal right away, probably because he saw what we saw, the judge's face. This wasn't just a verdict. This was an indictment of everything Karen had built her power on: coercion, manipulation, and false paperwork. Then came the hammer. The judge turned to Karen and read a separate statement. Mrs. Miller, due to the gravity of the fraud, the deliberate falsification of legal documents, and the calculated use of your role within a nonprofit to manipulate government zoning processes, this court is referring your case to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. She didn't look shocked. She looked exhausted. They hauled Karen out of her own clubhouse in handcuffs 2 weeks later. It was early morning when the sheriff's cruiser rolled up to Aspen Hills. No sirens, just steady wheels on pavement. I wasn't there, didn't need to be, but a neighbor caught it on video from their Ring cam. Karen answering the door in her robe, hands trembling, face pale, her famous clipboard nowhere in sight. The deputy read her rights, cuffed her, and led her past her prize lawn ornaments and down the concrete steps like just another perp on the morning docket. The footage made the rounds online within an hour. The headline wrote itself, HOA president arrested for land fraud, faces up to 3 years. Karen was charged with second-degree forgery, criminal impersonation, fraud in the inducement, and illegal use of public funds. The DA's office moved fast. The evidence was overwhelming, and public pressure was a damn furnace. They offered her a deal. 3 years suspended sentence, 1 year under house arrest, mandatory restitution, and permanent bar from any leadership in nonprofit or HOA organizations. She took it. Could have fought, but she knew better now. And the restitution, that wasn't negotiable. She owed me $140,000, and she paid every cent. Or rather, her HOA's insurance did, after a painful internal vote to settle rather than appeal. The Aspen Hills HOA board dissolved 2 weeks later. The HOA itself didn't vanish, but its reign of nonsense ended. A caretaker committee took over, their only job being to maintain common lawns and shut up. The Aspen Hills Green Space Trust? Shut down. Their funds pulled, grants revoked, nonprofit license voided. Derek Miller skipped town, last I heard, somewhere in Arizona selling solar panels. Lotman, the zoning officer, was let go quietly. The city never made a public statement, but the zoning portal was updated with new security protocols and double verification for annexation filings. They also began a retroactive audit of every HOA expansion application filed in the past 5 years. Quiet panic behind government walls. As for me, I didn't just rebuild my fence. I fortified it. I replaced every post with steel core rails, laser-etched the GPS coordinates onto metal plaques, and wired the entire perimeter with discrete motion sensors, not for revenge, just for insurance. The gate now has a camera and an intercom, and anyone who pulls in without being expected gets lit up like a Christmas tree on 5 different angles. Oh, and the sign, I updated it. It now reads, private property, not HOA land. Trespassers will be identified, tracked, and shamed. I've gotten a few honks of approval from passing trucks. The horses are back in their usual paddock, calm again. Hank, the jumper, still eyeballs the fence every so often like he's ready for round 2. Can't blame him. He's seen some things. People in the area started dropping by with stories of their own. One guy from the next county over said his HOA tried to fine him for painting his garage the wrong shade of beige, on a property he'd owned since the Reagan administration. Another couple said their HOA started requiring permits for backyard birthday parties. We shared coffee and laughed about it, but the truth was clear. What happened here? It wasn't rare. That's why I started speaking. Devin Fry aired a final segment on my story, called it HOA Gone Too Far, the fight for private land. It got picked up by a national news blog. After that, I started getting calls from people asking if I'd be willing to help them understand their deeds, their plat maps, their boundaries. I didn't ask for it, but suddenly I was being invited to testify in HOA reform panels and consult on zoning disputes. I said yes. Not because I wanted to be famous. Hell, I hate public speaking, but because I know now that if you don't defend what's yours, someone like Karen will decide it belongs to them. My grandfather left me this land. I built my house on it, dug my well, fed my animals. It's not just a property line. It's a promise that I won't let anyone take from me what I earned, and I sure as hell won't let them draw new lines just because their map says so. I stood my ground. Now I help others stand theirs.